Sometimes, the ones who change our lives forever aren't the rich, the powerful, or the ones with grand titles, but the quiet, kind-hearted souls who open their doors when the world has shut every other one. This is the story of a humble mechanic who welcomed a frightened mother and child into his worn-down garage, never imagining the boy carried a secret worth billions. What happened next will stir your heart, challenge your judgments, and remind you that family is not defined by blood, but by love. Welcome to another unforgettable journey on your favorite channel. Storytelling and beyond. The rain had been coming down for hours, relentless and cold like the world Elise had just escaped from. Mud splattered her coat, her hands trembled from exhaustion, and her legs ached from the miles she had walked with her son in tow. The night air was biting, and every building she passed seemed to blur into the next, indifferent, locked, closed off. Just like the people in her past. But the last flickering neon light at the edge of that forgotten town gave her pause. Briggs Auto Repair. Since 1981. The faded sign hung over a worn-out garage. There was no porch, no comfort, no promise of warmth, only the faint glow of a lamp behind the dusty office window and the faint hum of country music on a broken radio. Still, Elise stepped forward, clutching her son's small hand. He was barely 9, drenched, shivering, but he didn't complain. He never did. Her knuckles rapped against the garage door, timid but desperate. Inside, Samuel Briggs, known around town simply as Sam, sat hunched over an old carburetor, his calloused hands covered in oil and time. He looked up, brow furrowed, as the knocking came again. Most folks didn't come this way anymore, not at this hour. Probably another lost soul, he figured. He walked to the door, wiping his hands on a rag. And the moment he opened it, his eyes met hers, hollow with exhaustion, panic buried just beneath the surface. Her face bore faint bruises, and the boy beside her looked thin, too quiet for a child his age. I'm sorry to bother you, Elise whispered, voice barely audible over the rain. We need somewhere warm. Just for tonight. Please. Sam didn't ask questions. He didn't judge. He didn't scan her like others had, searching for lies or danger. He simply opened the door wider. Come in, he said gently. Dry off. The heater's barely holding, but it's better than outside. The garage office was cluttered, old mugs, worn-out calendars, and car manuals stacked beside a worn recliner. But to Elise and her son Lucas, it felt like a palace. Sam poured hot water into a chipped mug and handed it to Elise while he handed Lucas a towel and a sandwich he had packed for later. The boy looked up, hesitant, as if unsure if he was allowed to accept it. You're safe here, all right? Sam said, crouching down to meet Lucas's gaze. Name's Sam. And you? Lucas stared at him for a moment before murmuring, Lucas. A soft name. A haunted voice. Elise thanked him again and again, her voice breaking as she sat by the tiny space heater, holding Lucas close. She didn't share her story, but she didn't need to. The bruises on her wrist and the panic in her eyes said enough. Sam didn't pry. He offered them the little he had: a couch in the break room, warm soup from a thermos, and silence filled with kindness. As the storm outside raged on, Sam quietly adjusted the thermostat, laid out extra blankets, and returned to his carburetor, pretending not to notice Elise silently wiping away tears. Lucas eventually drifted off to sleep, curled beside his mother, his small hands still holding onto her torn sleeve. It was well past midnight when Sam noticed something that caught his eye. On his desk lay a small sketch, hastily folded. He recognized the greasy pencil smudges on the edge Lucas had been drawing while Elise dozed. Unfolding it gently, Sam's eyes widened. It was a blueprint of a V8 engine, labeled, shaded, and impressively accurate. The detail was remarkable, far beyond what any child his age should know. He glanced at the sleeping boy, puzzled and intrigued. Kid's got talent, he muttered under his breath, tucking the sketch away carefully. Sam didn't know then that the child under his roof wasn't just gifted. He didn't know the boy's absent father was a billionaire. And he certainly didn't know that this single act of kindness, opening his door to a beaten woman and her child, would alter the course of all their lives forever. But that night, as the rain softened and the thunder grew distant, a gentle peace settled over Briggs Auto Repair. It was a haven now, not just a workshop. A place of quiet healing. A place where fate had begun to write a story none of them could have foreseen. A story of pain, hope, redemption, and the kind of love that can't be brought. The sun rose hesitantly the next morning, painting the sky with streaks of pale orange and smoky gray. Sam was already up, his routine unchanged. He made a pot of bitter coffee, opened the garage doors halfway to let in the air, and got to tinkering beneath the hood of an old Ford pickup. But there was a different weight in the air. A presence that had nothing to do with carburetors or timing belts. In the back room, Elise stirred, blinking against the morning light that peeked through the frosted windows. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake Lucas, who was still wrapped in a warm blanket, the first night in months he'd slept without flinching in his dreams. She stepped into the garage hesitantly, brushing her tangled hair behind her ears. Sam glanced up from the engine and offered her a faint, grease-smudged smile. "Morning," he said. "Good morning," Elise replied, her voice still quiet, guarded. He handed her a cup of coffee in a cracked mug. "Hope you don't mind the strong stuff. It'll wake you up faster than your past." She chuckled softly. It was the first real sound of life Sam had heard from her. I don't know how to thank you for letting us stay," she said after a pause. "You don't even know me." Sam leaned back against the car, arms crossed. "Don't need to know your whole story to see when someone needs help." Elise looked away, her eyes blinking faster, as though trying to hold back tears. "Most people don't think that way." Sam shrugged. "Most people ain't had their own run-ins with life." There was a silence between them that wasn't uncomfortable. Just still. Then, from the break room, a small voice called out. "Mom?" Elise turned quickly. "Coming, baby." Lucas emerged, rubbing his eyes, a worn teddy bear clutched under one arm. When he saw Sam, he smiled a real, shy smile. Sam grinned. "Hey, champ. You like pancakes?" Lucas's eyes lit up. "I do." "Well, I've got the world's worst griddle in the break room, but I make a mean batch of floppy, ugly pancakes." Lucas giggled. Elise looked at Sam, that grateful ache behind her eyes returning. Later, as they sat on mismatched stools in the small kitchenette eating syrup-drenched pancakes off plastic plates, Sam noticed Lucas scribbling again on the back of an old invoice. He leaned over, pretending to sip his coffee, and peeked. It was a transmission schematic. "Hey, Lucas," he said slowly. "Where'd you learn to draw stuff like that?" Lucas looked up innocently. "My dad used to build things. Fast things." He said engines were like puzzles. Sam raised a brow. "Your dad a mechanic?" Elise stiffened, eyes on her fork. Lucas nodded, not noticing her sudden silence. "Something like that," he said. "But he left a long time ago. We don't talk about him anymore." Sam read the room and changed the subject, but his mind lingered on that sketch, the clean lines and perfect proportions. That boy had the eyes of an engineer, or something more. Later that afternoon, Sam took Lucas outside and showed him how to change the oil on an old Buick that hadn't run in years. Elise watched from inside, arms crossed but smiling faintly. Lucas's laughter, rare and pure, echoed across the lot. Sam hadn't realized how quiet his life had been until that sound filled it. But as the day wore on, Elise grew more anxious. She paced the office while Lucas helped Sam sort sockets and bolts. Her hands shook as she stared at her phone, its screen cracked, notifications silenced. She hadn't turned it on in 2 days. Now, her fingers hovered over the power button. She had to check. One tap. The screen lit up. 47 missed calls. 12 voicemails. A name flashed at the top. Raymond Wells. Her heart sank. Her past hadn't given up. She locked the phone again, pressed it tightly against her chest, and glanced at the garage where her son now laughed, shielded for a moment from the darkness that followed their every step. She didn't know how long this safe harbor would last. But she prayed silently that Sam might be more than just a mechanic. That he might be the turning point. The protector they never had. That evening, a storm crept in over the horizon, first with distant thunder, then with dark clouds swallowing the light. Sam worked late under the humming shop lights, the sound of tools clinking and engines breathing their final breaths echoing through the garage. Inside the office, Elise sat with Lucas asleep beside her, his head resting on her lap. Her eyes were sunken but awake, haunted by the past and terrified of the future. She kept glancing at her phone, as if willing it to stay quiet. But it didn't. It buzzed. She looked down. Unknown number. She froze. She didn't answer. Then, a second buzz, a text this time. You can't run forever. He belongs to me too. Her hands trembled. Her breath came shallow. Sam walked in just then, wiping his hands on a rag. He noticed the fear in her eyes. You okay? He asked gently, not pushing. Elise tucked the phone away. Yeah. Just tired. But Sam didn't believe her. He'd seen that look before, on war vets, on men running from debt collectors, on women trapped in a life they never chose. He didn't ask more, not yet, but he didn't stop watching. The rain began to fall, steady and heavy. Outside, a black SUV cruised slowly past the garage, its windows tinted, its headlights off. It paused just long enough for Sam to notice. Elise didn't. But Sam's instincts flared. Something wasn't right. Later that night, after Lucas had been tucked in on the couch with warm blankets and a bedtime story, Elise sat across from Sam at the tiny kitchen table. She held her cup of tea like it was a shield. Sam finally broke the silence. Elise, you don't have to tell me everything. But whatever you're running from, it's catching up, isn't it? Tears welled in her eyes. I thought I had more time, she whispered. I just wanted to keep my son safe. Sam leaned forward. You still can. But I need to know what I'm up against. She looked at him, and something inside her cracked. He wasn't just abusive, she began slowly. Raymond, my ex, he's powerful. Rich. Dangerous. His father is one of the wealthiest men in the state. He hides behind lawyers and money. But behind closed doors, he was a monster. Sam said nothing, his jaw tight, listening. I left when I found bruises on Lucas that I hadn't put there, she said, voice trembling. He said I was crazy. That no one would believe me. That even if I ran, he'd find us. Take Lucas. Use him. Like a pawn. She pulled out a crumpled envelope from her purse and slid it across the table. Sam opened it. Inside was a birth certificate. Lucas Wells. Father, Raymond Alexander Wells, Jr. Sam stared. He recognized the last name. Wells Industries. Generational money. Buildings with their name on them. Lucas was heir to a billionaire. I didn't want money, Elise said quickly, her voice rising. I wanted peace. I wanted safety. But now that he knows I left the state, he'll never stop. Sam leaned back slowly, the full picture sinking in. So this kid, he said, nodding toward the sleeping couch, he's got a name the world knows. Elise nodded. But I don't care about that, she added desperately. You've been kind to us when you didn't have to. I'll leave in the morning. I won't bring trouble to your doorstep. Sam shook his head. You're not going anywhere. She looked up, stunned. I don't scare easy, he said, a spark in his eyes. Not from engines, not from storms, and sure as hell not from cowards who hide behind their money. But you don't understand, Elise began. No, he interrupted, I do. He reached behind him and pulled down a dusty photo frame from the shelf. Inside was a picture of Sam in full military gear, flanked by his old squad. I was once a guy who answered to power too, he said. Until I realized the real fight is protecting the ones who have no armor left. The rain pounded harder now, like nature itself was backing Sam's words. I don't know what comes next, he said honestly. But as long as you and Lucas are under my roof, no one lays a finger on you. a tear escaped Elise's eye. Not out of fear this time, but relief. It had been years since anyone had stood for her. And now, she wasn't standing alone. It was a calm morning, eerily calm. Sunlight poured through the workshop's windows, warm and golden. The storm had passed. But inside Sam's shop, tension gripped the air like a held breath. Lucas was laughing as he played with a small toy car on the floor, the sound innocent, full of life. Elise sat nearby, folding freshly washed clothes Sam had helped her collect from a nearby shelter. The weight on her shoulders had lightened, if only a little. But outside, a black SUV rolled up again. This time, it didn't pass. It parked. Sam saw it through the garage's open bay. He immediately stepped forward, wiping grease off his hands, jaw clenched. The driver's door opened, and out stepped a tall, clean-cut man in a tailored suit. Two others emerged as well, bodyguards by the look of them. The man in the middle had eyes like ice. Raymond Wells, Jr. "Nice place," he sneered, walking in like he owned the ground. "Very humble." Sam didn't flinch. "Can I help you?" Raymond's eyes scanned the shop and fell on Elise, who'd risen to her feet. Fear clouded her face. "Found you," Raymond said, voice cold. "I told you you couldn't run forever." He took a step forward, but Sam placed himself between them, arms crossed. "You're not welcome here," he said flatly. Raymond chuckled. "I wasn't talking to you, grease monkey." Sam didn't move. "You are now." Raymond glanced at his men, smirking. "You think you can stop me?" "I know I can." The moment stretched. Then a new voice rang from the entrance. Firm. Commanding. "Raymond Alexander Wells, Jr.?" Everyone turned. A woman in uniform stepped in, Detective Alana Price. She was accompanied by a uniformed officer and holding a file folder. "We've received reports of endangerment and abuse," she announced, striding forward. "Thanks to credible witness statements and Elise's cooperation, we now have a court order granting temporary sole custody of Lucas Wells to his mother." Raymond's face changed instantly, from arrogance to rage. "You can't be serious." Alana held up her hand. "Save it for the judge. You're not laying a finger on that child." Raymond's fists balled. "You're making a mistake. That boy is mine. He has my name." Sam stepped forward slowly. "A name doesn't make you a father." Raymond opened his mouth, but Alana cut in again. "You're advised to leave now. Or we'll place you under arrest for trespassing and intimidation." Realizing he'd lost this round, Raymond growled and signaled to his guards. They turned, furious, and walked out into the sunlit street. The SUV peeled away, disappearing like a shadow into daylight. Inside, Elise collapsed onto the nearest stool, trembling. Sam knelt beside her. "It's over. At least for now." Tears streamed silently down her cheeks. "Thank you. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't have to," Sam replied softly. "Just raise that boy right. That'll be more than enough." Lucas came over, wrapping his arms around his mom. "I like it here," he said. "It feels like home." Sam smiled, really smiled, for the first time in years. And just as he did, Elise's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a threat. It was a message from someone she'd never met. "My name is Evelyn Wells. I'm Raymond's stepmother. I heard everything. Please call me. That boy deserves more than what my stepson gave. And you're not alone anymore." A new door had just opened. A door Elise never thought existed, one that led to healing, justice, and maybe, a future. And in the small garage tucked away in a quiet corner of town, a mechanic with a big heart had done what wealth never could. He gave two broken souls a chance to be whole again. This is Storytelling and Beyond, where hearts break and heal, where kindness changes lives, and where every voice matters.